Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of our weekly coaching webinar. Stick with me through my audio. I know it's been off the last few weeks. I think it's because my main microphone defaulted, and I've got a new one on its way, which is crazy because this one's not that old. But anyways, it's pulling my audio from my webcam, so hopefully everything's okay. So today we're going to be talking about hiring. We're going to be talking about probably one of the best ways to hire. Man, this has been a nightmare process for us to learn the right way here at Credit Suite. And I can tell you that we used to start, I'm still conditioned to do this, to start the hiring process 6 months before we're actually ready to hire, because it used to take that long, like to go out and put a job post out and find applicants and then be able to get them to come in and, qualify and everything that's involved. We used to be a nightmare process. That got a lot cleaner for us when we did two things. The first thing we did was hire Tisha, who runs our HR. And that was a big step. As the company's progressed, I have to be honest with you. I'm not a compliant kind of guy. I think like a lot of us entrepreneurs, we kind of start our own business to do whatever the heck we want to do. And then unfortunately, as the business gets bigger, you lose that ability. And what happens is you kind of run by attorneys and accountants and everything else. So HR was not a pleasant move for me to get into hiring HR. But then we hired Tisha, and I got to tell you, she's phenomenal. Our ability to hire, our ability to retain top talent has been significantly improved since we found Tisha. So eventually when your organization grows, to be able to have HR, it makes a big difference. The other thing that makes a big difference is this right here, something called Preview HR. I'm not here to try to pitch you on something today. There's no affiliate link I'm going to give you. I'm just going to tell you something that made our lives significantly better, and to tell you some of the things we really like about Preview HR in case you decide to use it. And if you don't want to use it or can't afford to, then I'm going to teach you some of the things Preview HR does that you can do outside of Preview HR, so you can see some of the things that we love most about it. So today we're talking all about hiring. We're talking about hiring and retaining top talent. There's all kinds of different estimates on this, but the last one I looked at is that if you hire somebody and let them go, it's cost you the equivalent money of about 6 to 9 months of what their salary is. That's the cost of a lost hire. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, and there's all kinds of assessments on it, but I will tell you this much, it's freaking expensive if you hire somebody and have to let them go. It's really expensive. It costs you a lot of money, and we've all been there where we bring somebody in, we think it's the right person, we train them, and then we go through this process only to find out they're not going to work and have to let them go, and then we have to start the process over. Sometimes it takes 3-4 months to figure out they're not going to work, and then you got to go through another process of hiring them again, which is 6 months. It's like a year-long cycle. I can also tell you that we all really suck at choosing the right applicants. All the science behind this says we actually think we're pretty good at it, and all the science also says that we really suck. Okay, that's the unfortunate part about it. So when it really comes down to hiring, finding the right people, all the information I've read on this, and I've read a lot, because when we had a couple hires that didn't work out well and it turned out very bad for the organization, I went through everything I could read on hiring A players. And some of the things I've learned is that, again, as I mentioned, we're really, really, really bad at this process. So what I'm going to give you today is going to actually help you be a lot better. It's going to help you make a lot less mistakes than you're typically going to make on your own if you're going through this hiring process on your own. There's also a great book I've been reading called Top Grading, or actually listening to. It's called Top Grading from Bradford Smart. And Top Grading, there's a bunch of editions, and it's all about the hiring process and how to do the hiring process the right way, how to formulate the right questions, all those type of things. I'm not going to be diving into a lot of that today, but I do want to give you a good resource to check out. Today, I'm just going to be diving in, taking a little bit of a look here at Preview HR. You guys can see here I have an applicant's information up. I'm going to have multiple, so please don't, be respectful for me, okay? I'm not, their phone numbers here, their emails here, etc. This could also be, really personal information or private information. I openly share with you guys everything because I always have, but that goes without saying that there's a level of trust there that you're not going to, reach out to somebody here or something. I'm just trying to show you what we found that works so you can duplicate some of the process. So first of all, what I like Preview HR is Preview HR pulls or puts your job post multiple different places. So I think that's really good, whether you're using Indeed or many of the other job sites that are out there. Preview HR posts that job in a bunch of different places, and I wasn't able to find out where it posts the job in here, but I will tell you that it actually posted in a bunch of different places, including Indeed. If you're not using Preview HR, I will tell you that Indeed is where we've had the absolute best luck of finding applicants. But from last time I checked, Preview HR and Indeed were pretty similar cost-wise. I think we're able to pay for Preview HR and have it post on Indeed as well for about the same cost as posting on Indeed. We had a lot of luck on Indeed. So if you're not using Preview HR, consider Indeed as your main hiring site. We had a lot of applicants from Craigslist, but the applicant quality is significantly less than we found with Preview HR or Indeed. So let me just state that. So let me show you some of the benefits that I like about Preview HR, that if you're using it or you get a lot of those benefits. If you don't use it, then look for some of these benefits and some of the other platforms or options you may do. You may have to combine some technologies to get what you get here. But again, I just want to show you exactly what I really like about it. So first of all, Preview HR makes it really easy to come in and have you're uploading the resume. So typically what's happening is they're responding to a job post. When they respond to the actual job post, they're able to upload their own resume. So in their actual file here, you can see that we actually have their resume here. And if I click on preview, I can actually see it without having to download it, which is nice. We can also come here and we can look at these screening questions, and we can add in the screening questions. So screening questions are done on our phone call, our initial phone call. And I recommend that you have an initial phone screening as well. So before you're physically meeting with somebody face-to-face, you or somebody on your team want to go through this. In our world, Tisha does a preview screening, and then she only tees up with those applicants that are actually really worth actually coming in and bringing in, which you can see some of the questions that she's asking here. And I'm going to show you some more things where these are assessed points based on their answers, et cetera, et cetera. So where you're currently located, where are you in your job search, the education they have, whether they have experience with our particular software is something we're asking as well. Assessment of phone skills, how were they on the phone? How did they do on the actual call? What's our long-term career goals? What's their salary expectations? What kind of money do they want to make? And then in this case, and these are different, these are different based on the position. I just want to pull up some of the screening questions you can see and see how we can locate it all in one place. What reasons do you have for leaving your most recent jobs? Okay, sales and closing experience, business credit funding, merchant cash advance experience, working with lenders. This is obviously from a finance officer position, so we're looking for things that are very unique to the actual job. Desire for job, what attracted you to apply? What do you know about our products or services? Okay, and then we can see their match. I'm going to show you what this means here. So we actually do a preview assessment match of the skill sets that we're looking for, and then we actually see where they rate, how much of a match they are to what we're looking for, and then we see their strengths and their weaknesses, which she ties into right here as well. So you can see this pre-screening questions along with the resume provides us a tremendous amount of additional information. Now, one of the reasons I like Preview HR is you can see right here that you could basically build in job questions. So you can basically come in and set up questions you want them to ask upon intake. And again, this happens automatically. They see the job and they come into this funnel, and this funnel basically it comes in and actually will have them answering these questions for us. Okay, so they're basically answering these questions right now, and then what happens is we actually get these answers and we basically score them based on their answers. So let's take a look at how this process works. How many years of related experience do you have? And then they're given an option of like 1 to 3. That would give them a score of 5. How many years of managing experience do you have? Okay, again, more than 5 years. It gave them a score of 15 here. How many years of customer service or client relations do they have? Have you completed any post-secondary education in a related field? What's the highest level? Okay, which of the following is your minimum acceptable annual salary? Are you willing to have part of your compensation based on commissions? How much of your target compensation would you like to be performance-based? Do you currently live in or near the city where the position is being based? So you can see here that what's happening is that we've come in with Preview HR. We've set up questions that we want to ask. How many is there? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 questions here. And based on it doesn't have to be 8, but I was just figuring that out. And then based on their answers, which is multiple choice, then they're assigned a score based on that actual answer. And then they have a score here. And then what's nice is that we can rate these applicants against each other. So we can come in here and see how one person scores over another person. We can see how that actually is, okay? So that being said, this really comes down to being able to set up the questions you want to ask, giving a grade or a score based on their answer they have, and then this is going to help you better match your applicants. So you can already see that if you're looking at resumes, and sometimes with positions you're looking at 10, 20, 30, 50 plus resumes, first of all, resumes I think are just a bunch of lies. Most people exaggerate and put what you want to see on there. And so I always, if you see my training on hiring on Upwork, I never even look at the resume. I only look at employer feedback because I look at real things, and a resume is not real. To me, it's all what they want you to see. Okay, so in this case, this is nice because we're asking them questions, and then based on those questions, and anybody that's seen my live stream knows what that sound is. That's my new puppy, Pomsky Bear behind me that's now fighting with a Great Dane that I'm pet sitting with. So if you've ever seen a Great Dane that's 130 pounds fighting with an 8-pound Pomsky, that's what's going on in the background right now. So anyway, so what I'm saying is it's nice because imagine how much nicer it is to come in, have your scores answered, and see a grade of how one applicant grades against another. It just helps make the decision-making process so much easier than it is if you're not using something like that. Now, let me show you why I really like Preview HR. And I might not go an hour today. I'm not going to try to lengthen this and make this an hour process, okay? But I do want to show you some of the highlights here that I think are going to work. So Preview HR does this fantastic job of putting together this report for us that you can see here that we see on this applicant. And what this report basically is this report, how we build this is we find an employee that we want to model. So let's just say as an example that we have, in this case, we're hiring a finance officer. Let's say that there's certain things about one finance officer we love. We're like, man, if we could find one like this guy, Jonathan, we're going to hire him all day long, right? So because of that, if we could find somebody like Jonathan or Jimmy or exactly like him, we'd hire him. So then what we do is we give Jimmy and Jonathan a bunch of questions. We ask them a bunch of questions. They fill out the questions, and it then gives us basically a baseline. It gives us what's called a benchmark, okay, that we could rate all other applicants against. Now, let's say Jimmy really, really is good at closing, and let's say Jimmy's really horrible at setting up the sale. Like he's horrible at the interview process. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just using this as an example. I might even make up fake names so my real finance officers don't hear this and think I'm talking about them real. So let's say Billy Bob, okay? Billy Bob really sucks at closing, but is really is good at closing, but he really sucks at interviewing, the interview process. And then let's say Billy Jean is really good at interviewing, but really sucks at closing. So we can take Billy Jean and ask Billy Jean questions related to setting up a sale, and ask Billy Bob questions about closing a sale, and then use their combined answers to set up benchmarks, okay? Or we can use their combined personalities to set up kind of benchmarks. So we can set up benchmarks based on one individual we model, or we could base it on multiple individuals we model. Now, it's better to set up benchmarks on one person that we model, because one person can go through the assessment and be asked a bunch of questions, give us the answers, and we can see easily what that benchmark is. A little bit more complicated for using more people to benchmark, but as you can see here, I'm not going to read all this. Preview will come in and talk about preview assessments, talk about the score, where they rank, talk about the benchmarks, talk about what the benchmark is. So this says the preview benchmark shows the preferred characteristics of an employee for a particular position. So we could match this against what other employees are. We can also match this against what we believe, what we want. So in this case, they're sending a questionnaire to me or to whoever's doing the hiring, and then the questions I answer will determine what the benchmark is. So for example, they may say on a scale of 1 to 10, how important for this position is punctuality? How important is it that they work well with other team members? How important is it that they are, good with numbers? Okay, so, and then I can say, well, like it's a 10, like they need to be good with numbers because they're a finance officer. How good is it that they work with other team members? Well, they really should be an 8 or higher, because like teamwork is one of our core values. So I can come in and do an individual assessment where I'm saying on these questions that are being asked, what I think that the importance is, or other people involved in the hiring process. And I can also use other team members as a benchmark against that as well. So I have a question, I have options here. I could say based on a 1 to 10, I want to answer 10, 20 questions and I want to determine what the benchmarks are, or other people involved in the hiring process, or I could develop the benchmarks based on other employees and their rankings. So when we come, this is basically what we see here. So we see that this is the actual results graph based on what we actually want them to assess. Now, Preview HR will let you assess, you determine what you're going to assess based on the actual position you're filling. You don't always have to ask the same questions and assess the same thing. Obviously, you wouldn't want to, right? Because every position you're hiring for is a little bit different and has different strengths. Okay, so then we can come in here and we can see where they actually rank. So from 1 to 10, we can see where they rank. We can see here in this gray shaded area, or whatever color that is. I'm colorblind, as many of you know. Whatever color this is, green, orange, some kind of similar color, you can see where they actually are coming in here and their ranking. And then we get a really detailed report of every aspect of that. So here's an overview of abilities, motivation, interest, personality. Okay, here's what we have right here. Now, based on our responses, it's telling us like what we want that was important wise as well. So it's saying, hey, look, based on our benchmark, okay, it shows kind of where he is in these, and then it talks about where our benchmark is as well. We can see here, I think it even tells us that the preview benchmark shows the preferred characteristics of an employee for a particular position. These characteristics are displayed as a range of desired STEM scores on each scale. This range is shaded and forms the benchmark for the scale. So we can actually see here where our range is, and we can see where he ranks as well, right? So we can see, for example, that on working with numbers, how is he? Would you hire this guy? So here's what's interesting. And then I'm not going to say this is the guy that it is or not, but I'm going to use this as an example. It was kind of crazy. So my finance team lead said they wanted to hire somebody, and I don't know if it was this guy or not. I really don't. And I said, okay. Well, what our HR did was they gave him a math test, which I got to be honest with you. I mean, math test was like super simple. Like I made it through, I don't know, like 9 of the 20 questions. And I'm like, okay, this is below my son's 5th grade level. I know that. Like my son is doing more complicated math at 5th grade than this is. And so what happened was the finance team lead said, hire this guy. We want to hire this guy immediately. And HR came back and said, no, I don't think so. This guy's horrible with numbers. I said, well, how could a finance team lead want to hire somebody who's horrible with numbers? And she said, look, here's how he scored on this test. And I said, that can't be right. Give me the test. Send me the test. Let me take this math test. So I took this math test, made it to 9 of the 20 questions. I said, this is ridiculous. Like my son in 5th grade could pass this. Are you telling me that he did not pass this test? And she said, yes. Well, you could see Preview HR picked that up. So the finance team lead made a bad call here. We see here that his ability in working with numbers, as you can see in our model, is very high, as you would expect, because he's a finance officer and all he does is work with numbers. So it's pretty understandable why we want him to work with numbers well, right? And you can see where he scored. So even though I have a team lead here, I don't know if this is the guy or not, but in this similar example, the team lead wants to hire somebody for a position that involves him being good with numbers when we can see his assessment says he's really bad with numbers. So this is the kind of benefit that you get with a Preview HR assessment. So the green, yellow, orange, whatever kind of color we have here. Oh, and Alan, well, I'll chime in with that, Alan, in a bit. But we can see here the color assessment we have and where he ranks. So we see that on working with numbers, he's horrible, right? We can see working with people, working with data, working with things like software, technology, etc. He's lower than we want on all of these, right? We could see he's very diplomatic, he's very independent. We could see he's cooperative and assertive. Those are higher than we want. Is that good or bad? Do we want somebody that's highly assertive? Do we want somebody that's really competitive? Well, these are things you have to determine. Do we want somebody that's really independent? Well, if somebody's working from home, probably so. If they're working with a team, that might not be a strength. Just because he scores high here, it isn't a good thing, right? Do we want him to be cooperative or competitive? An 8, that's good. I want a sales team member to be an 8 with competitive. I'm okay being a little higher than that range. Do we want somebody submissive or assertive? Well, he's way higher than we want. So based on the position, you got to ask yourself these things. Do we want somebody that's spontaneous or not? Do we want somebody that's innovative or conventional? He's very low on the innovative scale. This is somebody that's never going to progress as a leader because he doesn't have the ability to innovate. Very reactive or organized, okay, in the middle of the road there. Introvert, extrovert, self-sufficient, group-oriented, reserved or outgoing, kind of middle of the scale there. Emotional or stable, middle of the scale. Restless or poised, low. So I'm more on the restless side. Excitable, right in the middle. Frank or social desirable. So you can see how much this helps. I mean, if I'm looking for a finance officer, do I want this candidate based on what I'm seeing? Let's say I have no other data, nothing else. Do I want this candidate? Well, he's bad with numbers. I'm done. Bye. See ya. Right? Like this candidate never even makes it further because of question one. But if I wanted to dig deeper, would I even want to interview this person? They're not great working with people. They're not great working with things. They're bad with numbers. Okay, when we come into this, they're very independent, so they're not necessarily great working with the team, right? Competitive and assertive, not good characteristics of working with the team. So you can see, even without getting further down, I'm not liking what I'm seeing here for this candidate in this position. It just doesn't really make sense to hire this person. Not looking at a resume, not looking at how they distinguish themselves. And by the way, the assessment will even tell us if there are signs of dishonesty, if their questions are really are conflicting, if their answers are conflicting with each other, they'll even tell us that like this person it has signs of dishonesty here. Okay, and then we come in and we actually start looking at the total person description. So let's look at this for an assessment, and we can see if this is a good candidate. Okay, this person has lower than average ability working for numbers. Will likely take longer and be less accurate than others in dealing with tasks that involve in the use of processing of numerical information. This individual will likely require more instruction, guidance, and time to achieve confidence and competence in routine work involving numbers. For occasional or seasonal tasks, this person is going to need to review instructions before each repetition of the task. Frequent changes in the work routine involving numerical reasoning will be difficult for this person. Guys, is this person going to be a finance officer? Seriously, there's no way this person fits. You can see already. Okay, they have balanced average interest in working with people and with data. They have little motivation to work directly with material objects such as tools or machinery, don't care. Any equipment that they operate should be relatively simple and reliable as they're not mechanically inclined. They're generally going to choose to solve problems by accumulating and processing information and by interacting with other people. Okay, they're highly assertive and competitive. This individual willingly puts forth their own views and has no fear of confrontation or controversy. In pursuit of their goals, they will show little concern for others and may be uncooperative with those who do not share their views. As a decisive leader, they are driven to succeed and will work hard to reach individual goals. Okay, they're an original and innovative thinker. Okay, as far as they're concerned, the rules are subjective to interpretation and unforeseen developments are more likely to stimulate than intimidate. Therefore, this individual often seeks new ways to solve problems rather than follow established methods. So they're a rule breaker. Although preferring to act spontaneously, they're reasonably well organized and tidy. They can make plans and work in a controlled manner, but they are not upset if they have to abandon those plans to cope with unexpected events. They're stimulated by new developments and changing work environment. Okay, they enjoy the company of other people and can be troubled by extended work periods of solitude. Most people will find this individual be friendly and personal. They're quick to talk to others and enjoy their attention. While the candidate can listen effectively when concentrating, their instinct is to be the one doing the talking. They're enthusiastic. Enthusiasm is a tremendous advantage when presenting ideas. Though controversial and outgoing, they're also self-reliant, don't require constant social interaction. In a group setting, the candidate will occasionally command attention, but can also be comfortable as a quiet observer. The candidate's a good combination of emotional awareness in themselves and others and moderate sensitivity to stress. Although usually calm and not easily flustered, they can be upset by prolonged stress or exceedingly demanding tasks. In those conditions, the candidate will strive to regain their composure as quick as possible, and their sense of urgency will be in proportion to what needs to be done. While fairly trusting and open with others, this individual is sensitive to anyone trying to take advantage of them. and they will resist such behavior. Their reactions to stress are variable, but in the main, the candidate copes well and even does some of the best work in simulated adversity. Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen this kind of assessment with somebody you've hired before? And the second question is do you think this could help you if you did? Okay, look, if you don't use Preview HR, and I'm not sure the cost, I think it's like $300 a month. So again, maybe you could put it in there and use it if you are actively hiring and shut it down. I don't know that, but if you don't use Preview HR, guys, there are all kinds of DISC profile assessments and other hiring assessments that you could actually use here to come in and determine, or to come in and look and see if somebody's a good fit. So even if you don't use Preview HR, this is a really good look at the kind of information that's available when you use personality profiling assessments as part of your actual hiring process. So it makes sense inside or outside of Preview HR why you're going to want to do some kind of assessment of your actual applicant to get a view of their personality, to see how their personality fits the position. We, in this case, can see in paragraph 1 that the person's not a good fit because they're not good working with numbers. Okay, so here we come here. Suggested interview questions. They're even going to give us interview questions to potentially ask the customer. Okay, and they're going to talk to us about scores off the benchmark. So they're saying these scores are really far off the benchmark that you've set. And sure enough, the first one we see here is working with numbers. This person's scores fell off the benchmark for the following scales. Okay, they are below the given benchmark and appear to have limited ability for working with numbers. This may be evident in slower number recognition when finding or recording a price, address, or other numerical data. Mental or arithmetic may also be challenging. And here's some examples. If a customer asks for an estimate that requires a quick computation, how would you deal with this? What would you do if you couldn't use a calculator? These are questions that they're basically telling us. They're saying, look, you are way off the benchmark here. But like if you're crazy enough to move forward, you really want to consider asking them some of these questions to get a better view of like how they're going to compensate for this weakness, right? Describe what you would do if your calculator or spreadsheet gave you a result that seems far too large. So they're even coming in and giving us questions to dig deeper into this person and actually see if, to dig in deeper to see the fact that they don't meet our benchmark and whether that's really going to be a problem. Now, working with numbers is obvious. Well, working with data, for example, might not be as much. Working with things, do I care that this person can't work with inanimate objects? I don't, because they're working with numbers. So some of these I don't care about, but you can see that they're even giving us questions to ask in each one of these scenarios so we can come in and we can actually see what questions they can answer if they don't meet our actual requirement. Okay, and here's our individual characters as well. So these are looking at each one of these factors, working with people, data, numbers, working with things, independent, cooperative, assertive, and they're giving us feedback on each one of these individually. Submissive, assertive. Well, they're forthright, assertive, and outspoken. However, individuals like the candidate tend to be confrontational and unafraid of arguments and will readily put forth their own views. So you got to really be careful. This isn't the type of person I'm going to hire that's working with customers, right? So they're coming in and giving us characteristics or looking individually at each one of the characteristics and giving us feedback as well. So let's see here that they are, let's see something else where they scale off our scale. Innovative, conventional. People such as this person are likely to see new ways to solve problems that are not bound by traditional methods. An unconcerned attitude towards rules and guidelines allows them to be very flexible when reaching solutions. They're innovative and enjoy change. I got to read that again. That's a fantastic way of putting it. I'm going to use that to describe myself in the future. An unconcerned attitude toward rules and guidelines. That's exactly how I'm going to describe myself. I have an unconcerned attitude towards rules and guidelines that allows me to be very flexible when reaching solutions. So again, you have to think about what that's saying. I mean, they're just saying like they do whatever they want to do. Like they're very hard to rein in. So your no resume is going to tell you that, and that's pretty problematic with any employee that you have. That's problematic with any leader that you have as well. That's just problematic all the way around. Okay, so best practice information here, and I'm not going to come through and dig a lot deeper into that. But you see what I'm saying? Personality assessments and profiling helps tremendously. You can see how much this helps without even looking at a resume, the decisions we can make. We also see this big 60% bottom right. that's how they scored compared to our benchmarks. So this is a 60%. So we throw this number around all the time. If Tish is talking to us about 2 applicants, she's going to say, look, on this preview HR assessment, they're 60%. This applicant's 90. Well, then it's no question, like we're going to entertain the 90 over the 60 all day long, because 90% of our benchmarks they're hitting versus 60% of the benchmarks somebody else is hitting. So you can get an idea of how valuable this data is and what it actually is going to do to help you make all kinds of hiring decisions, as you can see here. Okay, so that's the main things I think I want to show you here with Preview HR. Let me go through and see if there was some other things here that I think are things that were important that we actually want to look into a little bit deeper. But that's really the main thing. I'm not going to spend a whole hour here, I guess, because I really wanted to introduce Preview HR to you, give you a little bit of an idea on what they do, some of their ideas that they have that I think was pretty brilliant. What I really like here is their ability to make it easy to hire and put the post in multiple different places, to be able to track where the application is, first interview completed, second interview, not qualified, reviewed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to come in and actually decide the questions we're going to ask and get them a ranking on questions to even see if they're going to meet our requirements here or not. And then to come in and do this really good assessment, which we've really loved, as you can see, that gives us our benchmarks based on things that we're modeling against other employees or questions that those in the position leading that job position may want, and then in an applicant, and then seeing how they actually score based on their answers to know if they're going to be a good fit or not. And we can see personality profiling and what it does for us in hiring and how it really helps us come through and be able to find the best applicant with all kinds of data and information here that we typically would not find in other places, that you're not going to find on a resume, you're not going to find in other applications. This all really has to do with personality assessment, and it doesn't have to be Preview HR that you're doing this with, but Preview HR is a great way to come in and actually be able to do that. So let me take a look at just somebody else here so you can kind of get an idea of this. Now, in this person, we've got the screening questionnaire. Okay, we've got some addendums here, reference checks, some of these type of things as well. Let's go into this Preview HR to just take a look at another one of these assessments so we can get a feel for how good. Well, actually, I'm just going to look at it right here versus pull that up. Oh, I don't know if they took the assessment or not. Well, actually, let's look at this. You haven't been invited to the site to complete a preview assessment. Let's begin the assessment. So okay, it's already completed. All right, so I was gonna say that'd be cool. We get to see it from a whole different perspective. So here is that actual report here on this applicant. Let's take a look at another one of these, and you can see one that's a little bit closer to what we're looking for. So check that out. That is a very highly qualified person, and you can see how he scores 85%. Now, what's nice about this is just as a view at a distance, we can see here how good of an applicant this is. I mean, they're in our range, higher than our range, in our range, in our range, higher, in our range, in our range, in our range. So of all the questions here, 1, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 17 questions, I only have 1, 2, 3 of 17 that are out of our range. So everything else is right in our range of what we're looking for. This is in our range of what's acceptable to us. So you can see that this is a much better applicant, 85%. I'm not going to read this all, but they have an average ability to work with numbers. They're highly motivated to work with people, strongly inclined to work with data. Strong preference for working with others means they will do well as part of the team. Their overriding interest in people should make them eager to use telephone equipment, email, the internet, other communication. For maximum performance, any long-term assignments for them should include contact with people. Okay, so, and this is somebody that's applying for a sales manager job. So these are the things we would actually expect. Okay, this candidate's consistent in their approach to problem solving, tending to stay with proven practices and procedures unless there is a compelling reason to change. They recognize the value of planning, generally disciplined, adequate time management skills. You can see a completely different assessment here than what we saw in the first person. And then we can also see here scores off the benchmark, okay? Well, they fell off the benchmark here. It shows a higher than average level of interest in work that involves dealing with people. What do you think? You think that I care about that? I'm hiring for a sales manager job. and they're telling me that they're off the scale when it comes to dealing with people. So that's actually a plus there. That's not even a negative. Here, they're apt to be extremely competitive, single-minded, and determined to win at all costs. Sales manager, yeah, that's good. I'll take that. I mean, it could be bad. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they're determined to win at all costs. It has to be a cultural fit, but you can still see they play to win and will tend to be a bad loser. Okay, well, again, that's might not be a bad thing when you've got somebody that's managing a sales team. Except for certain circumstances, they will handle most things in a calm and relaxed manner. That's a good thing for a manager. It's not a bad thing. So of all the things they're off the scale on the 4, really 1 and 2 are good. You don't even care. 2 of them we care about, maybe. And both of them are related to the same thing, win at all costs. So again, you get an idea of how it's easy to assess candidates here based on this. Now, let's actually go back, just out of curiosity here. Let me go back and let me actually go back and look at another one of these people. So let's look at another assessment with another VP candidate. Let's put them both in here so we can compare them side by side. And that's not going to work. Why aren't you letting me use that URL? Okay, let me go to this get assessment. It's going to tell me you've already completed it. I know that. And then we're going to come back and do this again, and it's not going to do that. So let's go ahead and pull up the PDF report. That's what we'll do instead. Okay, so let's look here and just do a comparison. Okay, and what's nice about this, right, is it lets us do a comparison so we can see a little bit of this person compared to the other. So this is our current person we just looked at, boom. And then let's go ahead and pull this person up. Okay, so we can see here very competitive, comparable. This person's a 77% here versus an 85. We can also see here that this person is off the score when it comes to independent diplomatic. So was this applicant. Both of them are. We can see they're off the scale with competitive, and so was our other applicant. They were off the scale with that one as well. And we can see that this new person is off the scale only in those areas, or under that when it comes to emotional versus stable, which is okay because they're not really much on that at all. This was a 5, the other person was a 4, so pretty close. So you can see why these two would make it into a final round of interviews. Both of them are fairly close with their personality. I mean, they're right within our ranges of what we want. And without the range that they're not good at, off the benchmark, working with data. So again, don't care about that a lot, but I'll tell you one of the things we did care about, and this is what's interesting, is that, wow, what's interesting here is that somebody that helped with these interviews is a very good friend of mine, a business partner, Dave Freeze, and Dave is a former interrogator. And what's interesting, and I remember about this, is he said, look, he goes, one of the interesting things I could tell you is that he says he's data driven, meaning he really makes decisions based on data. In my assessment, he showed signs of dishonesty there, where he didn't believe that that was true. So what's interesting is that I remember he just told me that yesterday, and you can see here that this personality profile picked that up as well. So I actually have a literal military CIA trained interrogator that actually, which by the way, you can have an interrogator be involved in your interview process. That always helps too. That is not something we normally do, but this high level of a position, we brought this guy in because he's an interrogator. He knows when people are lying, right? So he actually was able to assess exactly what the scale assessed. That, hey, this candidate actually was low in this area, but he believes he's good at it. But the reality is when I interview him, he shows signs that he doesn't necessarily believe that. And sure enough, this data supported it. So that's just an example, but I can tell you many cases where what we found in face-to-face interviews without this data supported the same data we found. Here, independent, he extremely competitive, okay, bad loser, okay, these are things that we would figure out or that we already knew could be the case, and was the same with the other applicant, and appears to be extremely rational, assertive, and outspoken person. And this was one of the things that came up here in the interrogation interview as well, which it wasn't an interrogation, which is done by an interrogator, said the same thing. You're gonna have a real problem here. This is a strong type A, very assertive person. And you see what that is? You're dealing with hyper type A personality here. And that was one of the concerns is, look, this applicant, you gotta be really concerned because you're bringing a type A, you're bringing a type A personality very strong in to work under me, and I'm a very strong type A personality as well, right? So we could see that that was a conflict. That was discovered in the interview, and it was also discovered here as well. So I'm going to look at one more, and then we're going to probably wrap up, but I want to pull in another person here. Let's see somebody that scored 75 on that scale. And also look at this. You see how preview makes it easy for us just to see the scale of how they actually ranked here as well. And I would like it if they would close that. Okay, and then we can see their total scores, etc. So let me pull in somebody that scored fairly low on the preview HR assessment, and then let's look at this just so you can see how you actually use this in real life. You can get a feel for that as well. So if I come in here and look at another applicant, we look at where they ranked, we can see the differences here. They're good with numbers. They're often working with data and things which we don't care about. Cooperative versus competitive. They're a little high on the competitive scale, but not as much as the other person we saw. They are assertive, type A. You got a sales leader here, we would expect that. They're very stable. They're very poised. They're very relaxed. Okay, so those are things that that are off our scale. And a little bit different. Working with data, they're a little bit higher than they think. That's good with the sales leader position. Working with things, they're higher. We don't care. Diplomatic or independent, they're a little bit higher on independent. That's not a bad thing. They can maintain helpful relationships with others. That's not a bad thing either. Okay, and they appear to be extremely rational, assertive, and outspoken. Okay, that could be bad depending on how assertive they actually are. And again, there's someone who usually enjoys company and stimulating environment. They're low on that. Well, that's not necessarily good for a sales manager. And we're usually tend to be calm, relaxed, and untroubled. That actually might not be a good thing at all, because again, the problem with that is that we've got somebody here that's in a sales management position. So that being said, that might not be good at all. So actually, my dog just pulled my cord out, but I think my microphone's still working good. Okay, so that being said, that kind of gives you an overview of why I like Preview HR. We've got a good look into Preview HR. We've looked at what Preview HR is. We've looked at some of the things that you could gain from Preview HR that you could also use in other places as well, if your other sites as well, how to pull all these places in one, how to look at personality assessments. I'm going to wrap up. I don't want to take a bunch more of your time. A lot of things that I'll probably do another training session related more to being able to find the right applicants, hire, etc. But this gives you an idea of some of the questions that are asked, how we use those questions, how we use personality profiling, how we list all of our jobs in one site, how we actually go through and manage applicants, as you can see here, and gives you an idea of the platform we use and how we use it. I'm going to open this up to questions. Alan had mentioned having a great game. That's awesome. So yeah, I just wish I could be the man my dog thinks I am. That's awesome, Alan. I love that. I'm a big dog fan, so I currently have two, which one is eating the Christmas decorations right now. She's our new puppy. And then I have a German Shepherd who's 5, and then I'm pet sitting for a friend's dog who's 1 in a huge Great Dane. So that being said, I'm going to wrap this up. If you have any other questions, go ahead and type them in. We have one more webinar before we get to Christmas. I'm not sure what that's going to be on. I'll figure that out next week. But if you don't have any questions, then hopefully you got a lot of good information. You can either check out Preview HR, or even if you're not going to use this, find a good personality profiling or DISC assessment out there for your applicants. Find, in some of the ideas I want you to walk away with, find a way to model your best employees or answer questions yourself to establish a benchmark of the people that you're looking at to be able to rank them one above another, and especially use personality profiling or assessments into your hiring process, because as you can see, it gives you a much better look into the process than you're ever going to find on your own just looking through resumes. So I'm going to wrap this up. Hopefully you got a lot of good information out of this today. If you have any other questions, let us know, support@creditsuite.com, and I will see you next Tuesday at 3 o'clock Eastern. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.